So I wrote a TED Talk on Route to Sustainable Future by Steffen. So I'm going to talk about Steffen, TED Talk innovations, recent technological advances, the climate change crisis, and adaptive reuse. So this TED Talk introduces world-changing co-founder Steffen, who demonstrates the importance of reducing humanity's ecological footprint. He explains the urgency of this matter as the Western consumer lifestyle spreads to developing countries. So that's Alex. He's an American futurist who promotes sustainability and emphasizes positivity. A famous quote from him is, "The fact that we haven't compellingly imagined a thriving, dynamic, sustainable world is a major reason we don't really live in one," which is quite interesting. So he co-founded worldchanging.com, which practiced solutions-based journalism, publishing solutions to contemporary issues rather than critiquing people. Throughout his talk, he discusses ecological footprint. So in essence, ecological footprint measures how fast we consume resources and generate waste. And society within the first world has an ecological footprint that, if it was applied to everyone on Earth, would mean that we would require 5 to 10 planets to sustain it. So it's quite excessive. Steffen also emphasizes the Earth's population is predicted to reach 8 billion people by 2025. So he also mentions throughout his talk a lot about this idea of a bright green city. So he gives examples of bright green cities such as Vancouver, which uses kind of green roofs, successful public transport systems, which means people abandon their cars, green spaces, and solar panels, all of which create a sustainable city. However, Steffen explains that the majority of the population does not live in these sustainable cities. They live in the emerging megacities of the developing world, and he demonstrates the extent to which Earth's population is growing. He said we add a city the size of Seattle every 7 days to the Earth, and he kind of goes through a number of ways that we can allow these emerging megacities to turn into bright green cities. So he encourages leapfrogging, which is a term he uses, which encourages developing countries to leapfrog last generation's technologies. So instead, these emerging megacities should utilize a low-cost or locally applicable version of today's technology. And he gives a good example of that, where a lot of developing countries leapfrog the use of the landline and went straight to the mobile phone. And other tools for collaboration, such as open source software, which gives internet access to developing countries. And he has a good example in Sao Paulo, where they have these telecentros and they have kind of cheap hack-together machines in abandoned buildings. And it allows like 250,000 people every year of the poorest people in Sao Paulo to access the internet and use computer programming. He also goes through innovative inventions in the developing world. So he gives examples of games that demonstrate serious play, such as Food Force, which you can see there. And it's a game which teaches children how to run a refugee camp. And Force More Powerful, which is a game which teaches young people to engage in non-violent insurrection and regime change. Other innovative design includes barefoot solar engineers who carry solar panels into remote mountains, fridges that don't require electricity, light straw, which is a straw you can take with you, and you can drink water anywhere because it will filter by the time it reaches your mouth. And a merry-go-round which pumps water while children play, which you can see there. Another interesting one was a landmine flower. So if you scatter seeds and then the roots of the seeds touch a landmine, then the flower turns red, so you won't step on them. And then I started looking at different technological inventions today to help the developing world, such as soccer ball, which is a ball that you kick around for 30 minutes and then can power a lamp for a couple of hours. Because in these countries, night time can actually be total darkness, so it's really helpful. Shootout grows, which can last 5 years for a child, as you can keep adjusting it. And television, which can be a low-cost produced pair of glasses, which you can change that to fit whatever vision you require. So Steffen delivers a message in this video which encourages the viewer to create solutions that lead to a new way of thinking about how we could better reduce the more significant outcome for our surroundings. This is a message that is incredibly prevalent today with the pressing issue of climate change. A new voice which echoes a similar message as Steffen is environmental activist Greta Thunberg. She famously said, I want you to act if the house is on fire because it is. And in 2019, millions of young people flooded the streets of cities around the world to demand political leaders to take urgent steps to stop climate change. And so she created a united worldwide protest when she was 16. So what can we do as architects? So these are some scary facts. In 2019, NASA released some stark and alarming data that carbon dioxide levels are currently at their highest in 650,000 years. 18 of the 19 warmest years on Earth have occurred since 2001, and in 2012 the Arctic summer shrank to the most extent in record in human history. And within architecture, the world's Green Building Council most recent report called for all new buildings to have 40% less embodied carbon emissions by 2030. However, according to the United Nations Environment Programme, buildings and construction account for 38% of global energy use and 39% of energy-related carbon emissions annually. Something we can do to combat it within our own industry is adaptive reuse. Adaptive reuse is a construction process that adapts the materials already available at hand using more minimal interventions in order to retain the historic fabric. It significantly reduces the raw material consumption of the building and it does not require demolition, which is an energy-intensive process, and the raw material is consumed for a new build. The reconstruction approach to adaptive reuse avoids material and debris waste whilst working with the existing structure. This reduces the pollution and energy intensity from demolishing an old structure and reusing raw materials, reducing waste. And you can see the efficiency as it takes estimated 65 years for an energy-efficient building to recapture the amount of energy lost in demolishing an existing building. And then further energy is required to build a new structure, exacerbating the energy waste with the new build. So it doesn't really matter if you make it all solar panels, but if you've knocked down the building, you've already lost what you're trying to achieve. And then construction waste. So the act of construction itself heavily pollutes our environment, accounting for 4% of particulate emissions each year and causing more water pollution incidents than any other industry. Pollution is further emphasized by the industry basing its economic model on waste. This is a result of demolishing structures and buildings and building new ones rather than just refurbishing and retrofitting existing structures. So then I started to look at adaptive reuse within Cork City, and I focused on 3 studies. So the Tristan Art Centre, which was originally built in 1720, the Cork and Limerick Savings Bank in 1842, and the new student hub in 1850. And the Cork and Limerick Savings Bank and the new student hub were built by Dean and Woodward, so it's the same architects originally. So that's the Tristan Art Centre. The actually was a church on the same site since 1050, and there's always been a church on that site. It was originally built by the Vikings, and this Georgian church that's here now was built in 1720. That remains on Cranbray. The architects kept many of the original features from the 1870s, such as the pulpit, stained glass windows, when the Kents actually purchased the building in 1979, it cost £20,000, but they had to pay an additional £10,000 to keep the organ, because the organ is actually incredibly valuable. It's built by T.C. Lewis, who also has an organ in Westminster Abbey. And we also get the crypt, so they put glass in it so you can see who's in there. Another one is the Cork and Limerick Savings Bank. So that's the original painting of the bank when it was built in the 1840s, and that's it today. So it was established in 1842 on One Laps Quay, and then underwent a deep retrofit in 2015. The structure was respected by the architects, and they restored the bank with its original integrity. The tall sash windows were painted black, as we saw them in the painting. The bank counters were taken up, but they used them as kind of timber paneling to enhance the structure. And they didn't demolish any of it, they just put kind of study spaces here, and you can see through the exterior into the bank. So it was just adding without demolishing. And then the last one is the student hub in UCC. So you can see throughout its existence, it was called the Clarendon building, and it was built in 1850 by Dean Woodward as well. And throughout its timeline, it's just constantly been added to, so never demolished. Oh yeah, O'Donnell and Timmy got their hands on it in 2014, and they focused on refurbishment rather than demolishment. So that's what they did with it. So they incorporated the historical fabric of the existing structure with contemporary design, creating study spaces, locations for events and media rooms, and these adapted for use to reduce costs and carbon emissions by avoiding demolition and rebuilding. So just to conclude, throughout the talk, Steffen urges the viewer to consider innovative solutions in order to combat pressing issues for the world we live in. The repercussions of climate change transcend generations as Earth experiences another mass extinction with increased droughts and increased flooding amongst other climatic issues. The adaptive reuse of existing buildings can offer relief to this extremely pernicious issue by significantly reducing carbon emissions in the construction industry. And another quote, which is quite relevant, is that the most sustainable building ever built is one that was never built at all. So that's my bibliography.